There it is. Welcome to Jake and Trev Review Everything Live.
I'm Jake Live.
And I'm Trev Live.
And so this is how we're going to do the live show. We have a list of questions that we compiled before the show, and we're going to read one of them, and then we're going to field a question from our chat. And we're going to see how well that goes until it completely breaks down. So, so our first question is from Joshua Carter. And he asks, Battletoads? Actually, there's not even a question mark on there.
It's more of a statement for Battletoads. Concerning Battletoads, I understand that GameStop has recently received a shipment of Battletoads cartridges. So if you'd like to reserve a copy, please call your local GameStop. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. You better step on this one before they're all gone.
Don't actually do that. You'll probably get kicked in the nuts through the phone. GameStop has that power.
That is an old joke. Battletoads, a very, very difficult NES game.
Holy shit, it's difficult. It was one of the, it was near the end of the NES. Came out. There's Toads. They battle. It's a two-player. You can play co-op, but it actually makes it more difficult because if one of your characters dies, both characters have to start the level over. There's not like a continue, kind of the classic X-Men arcade, pretty much any other game when you have a character drop out. It's a brawler, basically.
Yeah, so. And what's worse is that while one character dies, you have so many lives, one character dies, and then when you restart, the other character doesn't also start with a fresh set of lives. So you could die after making it nearly to the end of the level, and then have the other guy die right at the beginning of the level, and then start over again.
Yeah, and the other thing that facilitates dying very easily is the fact that there's friendly fire.
Yeah, that's kind of a baffling decision that early in the game in terms of video game production. I mean, to bring something like that, because boy, I couldn't tell you how many times I accidentally knocked Jake's frog down the rappel shaft. Or...
Well, that's the thing, because every attack. I mean, for the NES, you only have two buttons to attack with, and actually one to jump and one to attack.
So you have an attack button.
Except for the game is cool in the way that it has stylized attacks. So depending on how long you jam on the button, or in certain levels, like when you're rappelling down the hole in the second level, you have like a hammer swing attacks and stuff. So it's all like different animations depending on what you're swinging at. The only problem with that is that some of the animations are really powerful. So you can actually kill your teammate pretty easily on accident while not even trying.
Yeah. So it's an interesting game, and it's interesting enough as a oddity, I would say, in some ways that it's worth checking out. But it's not what you would call an easy to get a hold of game or easy to play game. Yeah.
So get your questions ready for after this, because I think we're close to being done with this topic about Battletoads. Also, we only really got up to the speeder bike level. If you don't know, if you've never played Battletoads or anything like that, go on YouTube, look up the video where somebody beats the speeder bike level by themselves. That's the third level in the game. Ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. They have checkpoints, so if you're playing one player, you could conceivably get through it better than if you had two players.
And I guess the other thing is, and maybe there was already a cross-promotional thing to go with it, but there's no story introduction at the beginning of the Battletoads game, really?
Well, there kind of is. It's like a cross between Bucky O'Hare and the Ninja Turtles.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the Ninja Turtles were a bit of an influence, I feel, in this, but... yeah, I guess I sort of feel like they dropped the ball in that, because everyone knew who the Turtles were. They had a cartoon, they had comics. You would know about them from one or the other, but nobody else knew what Battletoads is. I imagine more than a few people back in the late 80s or whatever heard Battletoads and kind of snickered to themselves as being kind of a Mutant Turtles ripoff.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, with the books that came with the game itself, like every other Nintendo game, it kind of had the flavor text and stuff. It was the same with the original Zelda for the NES, where it's like, I don't know why I'm wandering around like hitting spiky things that shoot peanuts at me. And then it's like, oh, those are, Octoroks, and you're Link, and you're trying to save Zelda, which is the first confusing thing, because it's like, oh, why? Well, aren't I Zelda? Isn't that? But you're not, you're Link.
So our first question from the live chat is from Joel Sundquist. And he wants to know, where are the strippers at? Well, they're not here. I can tell you that much. I suspect they are, in fact, at the strip joint.
Which is not here.
If you guys want to help us get strippers, we do accept donations.
Trevor does. I don't.
Oh no, Jake's gonna sit here and pretend like he doesn't like strippers.
I left that life behind a long time ago. So,
okay.
Yeah. Let's.
Well, thank you for your
sore topic. Joel. Let's move past it. All right. Our second question from the interwebs is from Corey Mirren, and he says, I enjoyed the Obscurosphere episode in which you drew up a variety of comparisons to Captain America and Batman, which we did. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. Are there any other pairs of heroes that come to mind contain a high number of similarities? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are. Mm-hmm. Next question. No. Yeah. There's a character right there,
Deadpool,
who has a remarkable amount of similarities to the character from DC, Deathstroke.
Deathstroke, the Terminator?
Yes, depending on how old school you want to go. A lot of folks don't know the Terminator name. And if you're a Teen Titans cartoon fan, you probably only know the character as Slade for some reason.
Slade Wilson.
And they only ever call him that.
Deadpool's real name is Wade Wilson, so there's that. We have a quick note here. Apparently Battletoads had a television series. I've never seen it. We should definitely check that out at some point.
Never knew. Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah.
Sorry, thought that was Ashley. No, that is Ben. Ben. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Ben.
Photo.
Yes, and thank you. But anyway,
Wade Wilson and Slade Wilson. Well, Slade Wilson was created as a villain for the DC Universe, and then somebody basically took all those ideas over to Marvel. It was kind of a friendly thing. It wasn't like...
the creators of the respective characters were allegedly friends, but in the end, they're extremely similar characters. At one point, the artist who was asked to draw Deadpool in the first place allegedly just kind of frankly said to the writer, this is Deathstroke. You're making Deathstroke as a Marvel character now. And they both started actually menacing and trying to destroy a team of relative newcomers in the superhero scene. So, I mean, it's pretty congruous.
Deadpool started off as a
villain.
Yeah. But he has more morphed it. Both characters split at some point. They both started off very similar.
Yeah, well, they've split and they've kind of grown together. They both sort of occupy more of an anti-hero role these days than a full-fledged hero or villain.
Deadpool's, it's, I'm not going to sit here and wax Deadpool. I could do it all day, but...
don't tempt him up.
Yeah, don't kickstart my heart on Deadpool, because we'll get going.
As a matter of fact, we actually had considered using Deadpool and Deathstroke as a example for the Obscurosphere, or actually possibly in a future Obscurosphere, but overall, I mean, there's that.
And we got Deadpool into the second Obscurosphere, and that was enough for me.
Other characters that are fairly similar: Superman and Captain Marvel, the DC Captain Marvel, known as Shazam to some of you.
Yeah,
Shazam. They're the same character, except Captain Marvel is magic and Superman's alien.
Yeah.
So that tells you about everything you need to know,
pretty much. Michael Swanson asks, what is your favorite review so far? Our favorite review so far, well, I'm not going to speak for you.
Yeah, as I said, don't. Do not.
I'd say my favorite review so far was our last one. I feel like we really, I'm not going to sit here and, toot my own horn here, but I feel like every episode is somewhat better than the last, if not much better than the last. And in this last episode, actually, Trevor did, I'm not going to toot my own horn, I'll toot Trevor's horn, I guess.
Oh, thanks.
He did some special effects. He did the little animation effects with the Princess Peach roadie, which was pretty cool, and some other effects as well, and they were pretty cool. So we definitely like the idea of having the item select screens and stuff, and having our own magical items and stuff.
Yeah. The expansion that's come along with this as we've progressed, and getting more sophisticated methods, better equipment, it's definitely helped us step up our game. I'm going to go almost the exact opposite to what Jake said. Streets of Fire, for me, is a real personal favorite. Number one, I love the film. And
I love it.
Using it as our film to kind of kick off the current format that you're enjoying in terms of using clips, making jokes, etc. It's where it started for us, really. I mean, we did a few episodes before that where we were more reminiscent of a podcast. I'm sure some of you know.
Yeah.
They're still bearing with us through that, by the way.
They're still on YouTube if you dig down there, but they're not on any playlists, really.
Yeah,
they're
we're trying to hide them quietly.
Yeah. So that's our picks for our favorite reviews. Trevor says the first, I say the last. The Alpha and Omega, funny... beginning and end.
Okay. Benjamin Hunter writes, my question for your show is, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? And just in case you happen to be wondering, African or European, my answer is both species, please. That being said, I could not come up with a better joke concerning all that than what the gentleman at Monty Python already provided us. So... that is an excellent movie.
They are the masters of their craft.
And also, as Ben continues to write, since that's not really reviewing something, I will ask you what you think of Monty Python movies in general as well. I mean, obviously, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is truly a classic. Life of Brian's pretty good, too. It's considerably more subversive because of its take on religion. But, I mean, it's certainly a worthwhile film. And the other ones, which are basically just skit collections wrapped around loose premises, they're all great.
Yeah. Now for something completely different. I gotta say, Meaning of Life is probably my favorite.
Yes, that was really a top notch. I still really, I think my favorite thing of that movie is the Tales of the Crimson Permanent Assurers. The very literal corporate piracy and raiding. I think
the whole building has a sail and it crashes through the city, and
beautiful.
It was really awesome. So that's, they have an illustrious history, and they've laid the groundwork for a lot of sketch comedy. So thanks to them. Give thanks to them, and obviously a billion other things for making funny happen. Here's a question from the chat. How do you get to be a guest on your show? I don't know. I've been trying to get to be a guest on your show. Our show. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
You had
it. To be a guest on our show, we've had a couple guests in the past. They usually have some sort of ability in the thing that we're reviewing. So, for instance, when we had Agent Joel on, who's actually in the chat right now, he knew a lot about Evil Dead. He's a huge horror movie buff, so he knows a lot about that. When we had Josh on originally, he knows a lot about Highlander, so we wanted him on to speak about Highlander, and he had said I think, if I remember correctly, he said that he hadn't really seen Highlander 2 in a very long time, so it was interesting for all of us to sit down and watch it, and there's still just volumes left to be said about that, and
we'll get around there at some point. Yeah. So I guess the first step would be that you should be an expert in some field of study in terms of movies, games, and so forth. Step 2, a willingness to appear on camera and participate in some of this goofiness.
Oh, yeah. We have a structure usually off camera, and we try to figure out what we're going to talk about when we talk about it. And, we definitely want a little bit of patter back and forth as well. You got to be able to think on your toes, sons and daughters. You little babies with cradling you in our arms, and you feel safe while we review with you.
Yeah, and of course, as this is Jake and Trev review everything, and not Jake and Trev plus guest review everything, we'd like to maintain the majority of our episodes without guests. So, I mean,
it's a little easier
the bare bone
for us.
fact is that we simply we won't always have time to indulge everyone that wants to be a part of the show. But if you have an idea for a topic that you happen to know a lot about, feel free to drop us a line. We're always open for consideration and suggestion.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. I'll field this with my fielding powers. Eric Muba says, albeit board games and card games still have their firm hold on the marketplace, but do you think computer games will completely push them out of the light and do away with board games? Also, what are some of your favorite board games, and why are they your favorite? That's 2 questions. That's cheating. I don't care. Let's see. I'll start on this one. Do I think computer games are going to do away with board games? Never. I really think, like, you know, they're different. They're entirely different things. I think that, you know, both markets wane and wax constantly. I mean, you know, we've had a huge video game boom and it's become more celebrated, but even in the beginning when video games started off, when you had Atari and some of the original arcade games, there was a huge bust in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, it wasn't until the Nintendo came out that it really picked back up again. So.
Yeah, from our perspective, it may seem now that video games are an eternal industry, like, you know, how none of us suspect that movies are going to go away or television at any point, but, you know, it's happened before. I mean, the genie's out of the bottle now. I mean, we'll always have video games as long as we have electricity going forward. But also the opposite. And in fact, what I think is very, very interesting is, I can tell you, place I work, I get to see a lot of different toys and so forth come through. And one thing I've noticed are home editions of popular games that are on Facebook, like Words with Friends, Bejeweled, Angry Birds.
That's more of a physics-based, obviously, because you're flinging birds and stuff. So.
But yeah, like Words with Friends and like, okay, so how isn't this, you know, Scrabble?
Yeah, so Words with Friends the board game. So it's like Street Fighter the movie, the game.
Right. So in this case, I sort of feel like we're going to wrap around here.